don't smoke, don't gamble, don't borrow, avoid the gangs at all costs, and do not make eye contact with people.
That was profound. Why don't you talk about that a little bit more, man?
About the five tips staying out of prison?
Yeah, go ahead, throw that out there again, because I think that's another one
Sure.
that's right there with the stinger, man.
I think it's great, man. And there's some things I feel like I'm like, man, this is really good. And then people, it's just like crickets. And I'm like, okay, all right, stinger time, or story time about how a guy got hit in the head with a dumbbell. And everybody's like, oh, this is great. And I'm like, but there's 5 tips too. He was locked up at the same time I was. And we were in different jails throughout the state. Back then, you could write to each other. So he sent me a letter. They call him a kite in there, or like if you're sending a note on the tier or sending a letter to another jail. A lot of times it's referred to as a kite. So he sent me one of these, and he was just like, listen, because he did time when he was younger, and he was currently in for a smaller, incarceration at this point. And he was like, listen, this is what worked for me. How to go in order? It was don't smoke, don't gamble, don't borrow, avoid the gangs at all costs, and do not make eye contact with people. And that stuck with me. And I was like, okay. So I thought about it, and I was like, the eye contact one didn't make a lot of sense until I started to see it. And I was like, oh, these guys are looking for a reason. So each one of them, and these are just 5 basic ones, because there's a whole handbook unwritten for the things that you need to learn. And it's going to be different from institution to institution. But those were core tenets of like what I use to guide myself through a lot of pitfalls. A lot of other people would just walk right into quickly. And I was like, okay, I'm thinking first, and I'm looking at this stuff. I'm like, how will this affect me? How will it not affect me? Is this a truism or not? And then come to find out, they were accurate, and they still hold to this day.
Oh, I believe it. You hear stories all the time. I was fortunate enough not to have to do any serious time myself. I got very fortunate on that. But you hear
Good,
stories,
man.
yeah, you hear
Yeah.
stories all the time. Give up those good shoes just so you can avoid that conflict.
Yeah.
Now, you were talking about the cigarettes. How about the drugs? How bad were the drugs in jail?
Depends where you were at. I ended up putting a video on YouTube. It was more of a long form because I can't do that on TikTok. So I was talking about how I worked in county jail in the kitchen, and part of the job that I had was a nighttime dishwashing job. So I go back and we get the work release trays. Now they weren't too heavy on it back then. Like I said, this was almost 20 years ago. So the guys would tape a pack of smokes up underneath of the tray, the dirty trays, and they'd be in a stack somewhere, and you'd look for them, you bring them back. So it's easy to get the stuff in. It's easy to get a hold of it. In certain institutions, it's more wide open. It's almost like open air markets. But it can be gotten. You can make hooch, you can get tobacco, you can do all that stuff if you want to. I chose not to because I was like, these are the things that put me here. Obviously after the county jail, I went through my bumps and everything. I smoked in there and I did all that, but I quit when I went to prison. I said, I'm done. It's illegal in here. Like, it'll get me a ticket. I'm not trying to get sent back for some tobacco. It's just for what? Like a quick head rush. I can just hold my breath and stick my head between my legs for a couple seconds if I want to do that and not get a ticket. So it's like, this don't even make any sense. But you can get it. It's readily available. It really comes down to just like on the streets. Choice is yours.
It always is.
Yes, sir.
It is a wild conundrum. I feel like there's a fate out there that was meant for you, and then there's the fate you decide, and the two of them kind of cross at certain times in life, and it's a wild way the world works, man.
Yeah, I don't understand it. And can't change the things in the past. You just got to make the best of what you got left. And that's how I look at it. We only got so much time, man.
Yeah, and time goes by quick.
Dude, faster than I imagined. I was 21 when I got locked up. I'm gonna be 42 this year. And I'm like, dude, where did it go?